Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever walked into a room and felt the air shift? Not because of loud laughter or extravagant fashion, but because of the quiet, commanding presence of a woman who doesn't beg for attention, but owns it without saying a word. She doesn't chase trends or approval. She doesn't argue to be heard or decorate her worth with noise. She is not loud, but she is felt, and in that stillness, she is irresistible. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you won't just understand these rare habits. You may begin to embody them, and that changes everything. Life has a way of testing us in the quietest, most unexpected moments. It's not always the storm that screams through the door. Sometimes it's the slow unraveling of patience, the phone call that never comes, the conversation that shifts from warm to coldness, the silence that stretches just long enough to sting. It's in these moments, the ones no one else sees, that true grace is born. There is a difference between being calm and being suppressed. The kind of grace I speak of is not about biting your tongue until it bleeds or smiling through gritted teeth. It is not politeness dipped in fear. It is something deeper, something earned, a kind of calm forged in fire, not fragility. You see, there's something captivating about a woman who doesn't allow chaos to dictate her character. She meets disappointment not with retaliation, but with understanding. She faces betrayal, not with vengeance, but with distance and dignity. That is not weakness, that is mastery. We live in a world addicted to reaction. Everything is urgent. Every disagreement, a battlefield. Every mistake, a scandal. And in the middle of this noise, the woman who carries herself with composed certainty becomes almost otherworldly. Not because she has never known anger, but because she knows it too well and no longer allows it to lead her. Not because she has never felt heartbreak, but because she has bled before and survived it without losing her softness. Grace is not born in comfort. It's cultivated in moments when your voice shakes, but you still speak kindly. When your heart breaks, but you don't shatter others with your pain. When you are misunderstood, yet you refuse to shrink into bitterness. That level of strength is rare because it's not about control. It's about surrendering to what you cannot change and still choosing to show up with poise. There's a quiet kind of confidence in a woman who does not chase vindication. She knows the truth has a way of surfacing. She trusts that character outlives reputation. She chooses to respond rather than react because she has learned, often through great personal cost, that what you say in anger is rarely remembered with pride. It takes nothing to be loud, but it takes everything to remain still when the world tempts you to explode. I've seen women who were forged in trauma become warriors of stillness. I've seen them lose what they loved most and still rise without asking the world to feel sorry for them. They don't shout their resilience, the one she silenced to keep others from leaving. She listens to that voice now. It is her compass. There's something magnetic about a woman who respects herself. You can feel it before she says a word. She's not boastful. She doesn't need to announce her standards. She is the standard. She doesn't chase closure. She becomes it. She doesn't try to prove her worth to those who can't see it. She simply removes herself from the table and watches who notices her absence. She's learned to say no, not with guilt, but with grace, not with an apology, but with assurance. Her no is not hostility. It's an affirmation of what matters to her. And when she says yes, it's with her full spirit, because she no longer splits herself into pieces just to be accepted. She gives from fullness now, not from desperation. She protects her peace like a sacred space, because she knows the price she paid to earn it. She doesn't invite chaos into her circle. She doesn't chase explanations from those who never tried to understand her. She simply watches patterns and listens to energy. If it feels off, she believes it. If it drains her, she releases it. If it disrespects her, she does not entertain it twice. This kind of presence, this calm rooted in boundaries, is what makes her unforgettable. She becomes a mirror not of what others want to see, but of who they truly are in her presence. Some will be drawn to her light. Others will be intimidated by it. And both reactions are not her responsibility. She no longer dims herself to ease the insecurities of others. She doesn't live for approval. She lives by alignment. She knows what feels right and she honors it. She doesn't hold on out of fear. She lets go out of strength. And when she loves deeply but never at the cost of her own soul. That balance, that ability to remain open-hearted without being open to harm, is what elevates her above the noise. She is not bitter. She is better. Better because she learned better. Because she chose not to stay broken, better because she faced herself in the mirror and decided she was worth protecting. She doesn't need revenge. Her growth is loud enough. She doesn't need validation. Her peace is proof enough. She doesn't need to be understood by everyone. She understands herself, and that is more than enough. Self-respect is not just a boundary. It is a standard of living. It is the quiet way she rises every morning and refuses to abandon herself for anyone or anything. It is in the way she walks away, with her head high even when her heart is heavy. It is in the silence she keeps when her soul already knows the answer. It is in the dignity with which she ends what no longer feeds her. She no longer begs to be chosen. She chooses herself. And in that choice, something shifts. The world begins to treat her differently, because the energy you give yourself is the energy others reflect back to you. When you stop settling, the universe stops offering you crumbs. And so she moves through life, not as someone waiting to be accepted, but as someone who accepts herself completely. It's not that she has no fear. It's that fear no longer makes her small. It's not that she has all the answers. It's that she is no longer afraid to walk away from the wrong questions. From this place of unwavering self-respect, she no longer has to defend her worth. She lives it, breathes it, and those around her feel it, even if they cannot name it. And as this quiet, powerful current carries her forward, another truth begins to take shape, not just in how she moves through the world, but in how deeply she connects to it. Because once self-respect is in place, something even more powerful begins to emerge. A deep, boundless empathy that doesn't lose itself in the emotions of others. An empathy anchored by strength, not sacrifice. And it is there, in that delicate balance between heart and backbone, that the next layer of her irresistibility reveals itself. There is a rare and powerful strength in the woman who can hold space for others without losing herself in their chaos. She is the calm in the storm, the steady breath in a world gasping for validation, and the soul who can reach into another's darkness without dimming her own light. This is not a talent she was born with. It is a discipline, a sacred practice, the ability to offer deep empathy without attachment. She does not love to be needed. She does not listen so she can fix. She does not absorb another's wounds just to prove her value. She has learned that empathy is not about sacrifice, it is about connection, and true connection cannot exist where one must disappear to keep the other whole. You can feel it in her presence. When she listens, she really listens, not waiting to speak, not preparing her reply, not turning the moment back onto herself she receives. She hears the unspoken words, the trembling between the sentences. Her attention is not loud, but it is complete. You feel safe in her presence because she does not rush to judge or interrupt. She allows pain to be seen without needing to decorate it with solutions. Yet in that very openness lies your strength. Because while she may feel your sorrow, she does not carry it like a burden. She has learned often through great suffering of her own that compassion does not require personal collapse. That caring deeply is not the same as carrying everything. She draws lines, not walls. She does not shut down when emotions run high, but she does not drown either. She knows how to tread the deep waters of human experience. With grace, she knows when to offer her hand and when to let others find their footing. She has tasted the exhaustion of overextending, and now she walks with balance, offering what she is never, what she doesn't. This is what makes her presence so magnetic. People are drawn to her not because she fixes them, but because they feel seen genuinely. Without performance in her gaze, there is no agenda. In her energy, no attempt to impress. There is only a mirror, soft but clear, that reflects back to others. their own hidden truth. She doesn't force you to feel safe, you simply do. And that safety does not come from her erasing herself. It comes from her being so rooted in who she is that she no longer fears being swept away by who others need her to be. She doesn't confuse love with obligation. She no longer pours herself into people hoping they will fill her in return. She gives because it is her nature, not her need. She has outgrown the savior complex. She knows now that healing is not something she can do for others. It is something she can only witness, encourage, and honor. She used to believe that if she just loved hard enough, she could prevent the pain, rescue the broken, rewrite the ending. But life has taught her that some journeys are not hers to walk. Some lessons must be learned alone. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to let go. She doesn't abandon people, but she no longer abandons herself for people. There is a difference. She stays present as long as presence is respected. She offers her light as long as it's not being drained. And when the energy turns, when the space becomes unsafe, she does not explain. She exits. Empathy for her is not about enabling. It's about empowering. She does not soften the truth to avoid discomfort. She doesn't tell you what you want to hear. She tells you what your soul is, whispering beneath the noise, and because her voice is calm, unwavering, and free of ego, you find yourself listening, perhaps. For the first time, there is an elegance in the way she loves. It's not loud. It's not desperate. It doesn't seek to own or to bind. It invites, it welcomes, and if it is not returned, it does not crumble. She knows that love given freely is never wasted, even if it isn't received as it was intended. She does not cling. She does not beg. She does not perform emotional acrobatics to be chosen. When someone withdraws, she honors their space. When someone betrays, she grieves, but she does not chase. Her heart may ache, but it remains intact because it is hers entirely, and she no longer trades pieces of it for temporary warmth. She holds herself with reverence. This is why she can hold others without judgment. She has faced her own demon, sat in her own darkness, stared long into the mirror, without flinching. That is why she does not flinch when others show her their shadow. She does not shame them, she does not fix them. She simply stays present long enough for them to remember their own strength. And when she leaves, she does so with grace, no drama, no bitterness, just a quiet understanding that not every connection is meant to last, and that not every goodbye needs to be allowed to be final. Her empathy is a gift, not a contract. Her love is real, not transactional, and her departure is never cruel. It is simply necessary when the energy becomes unworthy of her spirit. She has nothing to prove. She's not collecting hearts or followers. Her peace is her compass, her intuition her guide. She's been burned enough to know when the fire no longer gives warmth. She doesn't need to touch it again, to remember the pain. She simply steps back and lets the silence do what words cannot. People may mistake her softness for naivety, but they quickly learn that softness and weakness are not the same. Her kindness is a choice, not a default. Her compassion is powerful, not passive. And when it's no longer respected, she can walk away without flinching, not because she is cold, but because she is clear. This clarity, this calm, this steady river of empathy anchored by boundaries, that is what makes her unforgettable. You may not remember every word she says, but you will remember how you felt in her presence, safe, heard, and seen. Not because she needed you to feel that way, but because she chose to show up fully and let you meet her there. From this place of deep inner clarity, her next step is not to retreat into solitude, but to walk forward in her truth. And with each step, her presence grows even more powerful, because now that empathy rooted in strength becomes the foundation for something even more magnetic, a confidence that does not shout or seek, but simply is not borrowed, not forced, but earned. And when a woman walks with that kind of self-assured authenticity, the world can't help but follow. Confidence. It's one of those words that's been stretched and bent, shouted, and sold, until its meaning is more performance than truth. We are surrounded by versions of it, loud, brash, curated, always on display. But there is a confidence that does not need to raise its voice. It doesn't need applause. or attention. It doesn't ask for permission. It simply walks into a room and changes the atmosphere without effort. And that kind of confidence, the kind rooted in authenticity, is what sets a mature woman apart. She no longer seeks to become what others want. She spent too many years twisting herself into acceptable shapes, chasing a mold that was never made for her. She knows now that every time she ignored her instincts to please others, she betrayed something sacred. That kind of betrayal isn't loud. It's quiet, it accumulates, it wears down the soul until the reflection in the mirror becomes unrecognizable. And so she stopped. There's no longer a mask to keep up, no version of herself. She rehearses to be liked. She walks in her skin fully. The wrinkles, the scars, the silent victories, and the loud lessons, they are all part of her tapestry. She has made peace with what she is not, and because of that, she radiates with the power of who she is. You won't find her fishing for compliments. She's not baiting admiration with beauty tricks or clever angles. Her beauty comes from alignment where her inner world matches what you see. She doesn't dress to compete. She dresses to express. She doesn't speak to impress. She speaks to connect. Her words land differently because they come from a place unpolluted by performance. She knows how to be heard without shouting. She knows how to make her presence felt without asking for attention. That is not arrogance. That is certainty. She's done pretending to enjoy shallow conversations, pretending to be smaller than she is, pretending she's okay with crumbs when she deserves the feast, pretending that indifference doesn't hurt or that silence doesn't sting. She no longer tolerates half-hearted affection or conditional acceptance. And that decision, that quiet decision to no longer perform, is the root of her power. She's not chasing popularity. She doesn't need to be everyone's favorite. She's not a shapeshifter, molding herself for each new crowd. Her loyalty is to truth, to congruence. And that's why people trust her. You don't have to guess who she is. You don't have to walk on eggshells fearing the mood she'll be in. She is consistent, not because life is easy, but because she's anchored in something deeper than emotion, her values, her boundaries, her sense of purpose. There's something magnetic about someone who knows who they are and refuses to be anything else. It's not that she's closed off to growth. Quite the opposite. She's constantly learning, constantly evolving, but not to be liked, to be real. Her growth is not about becoming more palatable to others. It's about becoming more aligned with herself. She's not interested in being better than anyone. She's interested in being better than the version of herself who still needed outside permission to feel whole. When you look into her eyes, you see it. Not just confidence, but clarity. She's not performing happiness. She's not manufacturing peace. She's living it even in her pain. She doesn't collapse into victimhood. She feels deeply. But she refuses to be defined by what hurt her. She wears her heartbreak, not like armor, but like a story, a reminder that she made it through. And because she's made it through, she no longer apologizes for taking up space. She doesn't shrink in the presence of louder voices. She doesn't rush to fill silence. She knows the value of her words, and she speaks. When she's ready, she's not in a hurry to prove her intelligence, her experience, her wit. She lets her life do the speaking. There's a wisdom in that restraint, a maturity that doesn't need constant reinforcement. She has nothing to prove, and that paradoxically proves everything. She laughs at things that once kept her awake at night, not because they no longer matter, but because she no longer places her peace in the hands of the uncertain. She walks away from confusion now. She leaves when energy feels off. She doesn't beg for clarity from those who speak in riddles. If it doesn't feel honest, she knows it isn't for her. What's most remarkable is not that she's confident, but that she's content with the source of her confidence. It's not artificial. It's not fragile. It's not built on followers or flattery. It's the confidence that comes from honoring her own truth for so long that she no longer fears rejection because she's been rejected before. And it didn't destroy her. It revealed her. She's not perfect. She doesn't pretend to be. She doesn't hide her flaws behind filters or silence, her doubts with distractions. She has days when her heart is heavy, when her thoughts are loud, when her voice trembles. But even then, she shows up not as a performance, but as herself. That's the difference. That's what makes her unforgettable. She listens, more, than she speaks because she's not waiting for a turn to be impressive. She's waiting for a moment to be present. She doesn't dominate conversations to prove she belongs. She knows she belongs wherever she chooses to be. And if the room doesn't honor her presence, she doesn't force it. She leaves. Her energy speaks before her words do. There's a stillness to her, a groundedness that can't be faked. She's not trying to be liked. She's too busy being whole. And that wholeness draws people in, because it's so rare to witness someone who is not auditioning for acceptance. She's no longer threatened by other women. She doesn't compete because she understands that no one can take what is hers, and she doesn't need what isn't aligned. She celebrates others not to be seen as generous, but because generosity is her nature. That is what true confidence looks like. Security that allows others to shine without feeling dimmed. She speaks her truth not to wound, but to liberate. And when she's wrong, she owns it. That's part of what makes her so compelling. Her confidence includes humility. She has nothing to hide, so she's nothing to fear. And when you watch her move through the world, you start to understand this isn't the kind of confidence that can be taught in a seminar or purchased with status. This is earned quietly over years through loss, self-reflection, silence, rebuilding. It's not glamorous, it's not loud, but it is enduring. And it is from this confidence, this still unwavering presence, that she steps into the next layer of her irresistibility. Not just in how she walks or speaks, but in how she lives, with intention, with purpose, with a kind of clarity that turns ordinary moments into sacred ones. And when a woman begins to live with that kind of intention, she becomes more than admired. She becomes unforgettable. There is something deeply magnetic about a woman who moves through the world with purpose, not chaos, not a frantic need to fill every silence or every opportunity, but purpose. A quiet, unshakable sense that her life is not just passing time. It is building something, not always something grand, not always visible, but meaningful, deliberate, and aligned with something greater than applause. She no longer lives just to be busy. She knows that movement without meaning is just noise. There was a time, perhaps, when she tried to do everything to prove herself, to stay relevant, to feel important. She knows what it feels like to be exhausted and unfulfilled, surrounded by motion, but absent of direction. That kind of living wears you down. It steals the joy from even the most beautiful days. And it taught her one thing: if the soul isn't in it, it isn't worth it. Now every yes she offers is measured not in fear but in clarity. She knows that time is not just precious, it's sacred, and she's no longer willing to give it away in pieces to things that drain her. Her purpose isn't loud. She doesn't wake up every morning with a grand declaration. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's tender, but it's there in how she speaks, in how she listens, in how she pours herself into the simple rituals that give her life texture and depth. Purpose has changed how she shows up for others. It's no longer about being liked, it's about being honest. She doesn't bend her truth to avoid discomfort. She doesn't play small to avoid intimidating others. She knows now that her authenticity is not just a gift, it's part of her calling. And when she stands in it without apology, others around her rise too. There's a sense of peace in her eyes. Not because life has been easy, but because she no longer lets life pull her away from what matters. She doesn't panic when others doubt her path. She doesn't defend her decisions with long explanations. She walks forward because her feet are grounded in something real, and that kind of groundedness is irresistible, not because it demands attention, but because it invites reflection. You start to question your own distractions in her presence. You begin to wonder what you've been giving your life to that doesn't deserve it. She doesn't follow the trends. She's not moved by every new wave of advice or appearance or ambition. She's not chasing relevance. She is timeless in how she carries herself, because purpose makes you timeless. It draws you out of the shallow breath of comparison and into the deep inhale of meaning. She's not interested in popularity. She's interested in alignment. What feeds her soul? What wakes her up inside? What sustains her long after the lights go out? Her days may be quiet. She's not always on a stage. She doesn't need to be. Her impact doesn't come from being seen by the masses. It comes from being felt deeply by the few she chooses to touch. Purpose has taught her that real legacy isn't built in noise. It's built in the unseen moments. The way she speaks to a stranger, the way she lifts someone without needing credit, the way she refuses to turn bitter, even when life gives her every reason to. She's not waiting for the world to give her permission anymore. She's not putting her dreams on hold until someone validates them. She creates. She nurtures. She builds, even when no one claps. Even when no one notices. That is the power of purpose. It frees you from the addiction to recognition. It anchors you to the joy of contribution. She gives now not to be remembered, but because it's who she is. There is a softness in her that doesn't erase her fire. She is gentle with her time but fierce about her mission. She protects her vision from those who cannot see it. She doesn't overshare. She doesn't over-explain. Not because she is secretive, but because she has learned that not everyone deserves access to the sacred parts of her soul. Her purpose is not a product to be sold. It's a compass to be followed, and she guards it well. This clarity did not come easily. It came from years of wandering, of pouring herself into things that looked good, but felt empty. She's been praised for roles that suffocated her. She's been applauded for lives that weren't her own. And in that dissonance, she heard a quiet voice calling her back to what mattered, back to the rhythm of her own heart, back to the path that required less pretending and more presence. Now she wakes not with dread, but with devotion. Even on the hard days, even when nothing makes sense, because her life has become more than survival. It has become an offering. Each hour, each breath, each conversation, it all counts. It's all part of something bigger, and she may never see the full picture, but she trusts the brush in her hand. She paints with love, with truth, with intention. Others may not understand. They may question her choices. They may call her strange or difficult or too much. But she no longer translates her purpose for people not meant to understand it. She lets them wonder because she is too busy living, too busy becoming. This woman, this mature and grounded soul, is not trying to impress you. She is not trying to convince you. She is trying to be fully, freely, unapologetically. And that state of being, that state of living aligned with purpose, is far more captivating than any charm or perfection. You can feel the weight of her presence. You can sense the depth of her thoughts. You can see in her quiet certainty a map you've been searching for. And as she walks forward, lit from within by something the world didn't give her and can't take away, her steps echo with something sacred. Not a mission statement, not a slogan, but a life lived with meaning. And from that meaning flows something even more subtle, even more profound. An elegance that no money can buy, no age can diminish, and no trend can replicate. An elegance that whispers before she speaks and lingers long after she's gone. There is a quiet power that walks into a room long before a word is spoken. And it doesn't come draped in gold or stitched into fine fabric. It doesn't rely on status, youth, or spectacle. This power is found in the woman who carries herself with simplicity, a simplicity that is not plain but profound, not empty, but elevated. And in this simplicity lies a kind of elegance that cannot be taught. It must be remembered, has stripped away the unnecessary. She is no longer seduced by excess, no longer distracted by the noise that once seemed important. She has learned that real beauty does not demand attention. It invites presence. She no longer decorates herself for approval. She adorns herself in self-awareness and stillness, in the understanding that who she is speaks louder than what she wears or owns, and that understanding follows her silently and irresistibly. You notice it in the way she moves, unrushed, grounded, not trying to catch up with the world or compete for space within it. She takes her time not out of laziness, but because she values each moment. Her pace is her own, her rhythm undisturbed by comparison. There's an ease in her step that tells you she doesn't need to hurry to matter. She already does. There is no chaos in her expression, no performance in her posture. Her elegance isn't tied to heels or gowns, but to the way she looks you in the eye when she speaks, the way she listens without trying to control the conversation, the way she allows silence to sit between words without needing to fill it. That kind of presence cannot be faked. It can only be cultivated in the long, private hours of becoming. She no longer seeks complexity for the sake of it. She doesn't chase experiences to appear interesting. Her depth is not built on drama but on clarity, and clarity is the rarest kind of refinement. She speaks when she means something. She laughs when she truly feels joy. She doesn't over-elaborate to be understood. She chooses words the way a master carver chooses his tools, deliberately, sparingly, with respect for their weight. Her home, her habits, her energy all reflect the same philosophy. Less noise, more meaning, less reaction, more intention. She doesn't own 100 things she doesn't need because her sense of richness doesn't come from accumulation. It comes from peace. She's learned that having less can often mean living more. More room to breathe, more clarity to choose, more space to love, from a place of freedom, rather than fear. And in that space, she becomes deeply present. She's not scattered. She's not torn between identities or trying to impress 10 different versions of the world. She is just herself, fully. And that is what makes her unforgettable, not because she tries to stand out, but because she is so deeply at home in her own skin that you can't help but notice. She makes you want to return to yourself. She no longer plays by rules written for someone else's life. She has unlearned the need for approval and in its place found contentment. Not stagnation, contentment in knowing that she lacks nothing, that she is already complete, that if nothing more were added to her life, she could still rise each morning with gratitude. This doesn't mean she has no ambition. It means her ambition is clean, untainted by desperation, detached from ego. She builds from love, not from lack. Her style reflects that same ease. She does not overdose. She is not lost in adornments. She is not chasing youth in her appearance because she does not see aging as a battle. She sees it as a beautiful unfolding. The fine lines on her face are not enemies to be erased. They are chapters in her story, and when she smiles, they deepen not with regret but with memory. She carries time with grace, and that grace is her signature. She's walked through fire and didn't come out shouting about her scars. She doesn't need to. You can feel the resilience in her silence. You can see it in the way she offers kindness without expectation. You can sense it in the way she no longer tries to fix what isn't theirs to fix. Her peace is not accidental. It is earned, and it is maintained, through boundaries not built with walls but with wisdom. She has become a curator of her own energy. She chooses what she allows in and who she doesn't need to be surrounded. She needs to be aligned. That is why her circle is small, but strong. There is no place for noise in her sanctuary. Her connections are not based on flattery but on truth. She has learned that real love does not compete for attention. It honors presence. When she speaks, people listen, not because she commands, but because her words carry weight. Not weight from volume, but from sincerity. She speaks like someone who's nothing to prove, and that is what gives her voice such power. She does not waste time trying to convince the world of her worth. She lives it, breathes it, radiates it. There is a stillness in her that reflects something ancient, something we've forgotten in our rush to be noticed. She reminds us of what it means to be whole, to be refined not by decoration, but by truth. She teaches not with lessons, but by example. Just being around her feels like a permission slip to slow down, to return to the essence, to strip away the noise and rediscover the beauty in what is simple and real. She is not irresistible because she is loud. She is irresistible because she is centered. She is not magnetic because she performs. She is magnetic because she is present. You cannot manufacture what she embodies. You can only arrive there slowly, as she did, by shedding what is false and choosing over and over again to be rooted in what is true. And when she enters a room, she may not be the first to speak, the brightest dressed or the most adorned. But people turn. They feel something, a shift. An energy that doesn't beg to be seen but cannot be ignored. And it lingers, long after she's gone. Because what she brought into the room wasn't just style or charm or perfection, it was presence, it was elegance, born from simplicity, and that kind of beauty never leaves quietly. Ladies and gentlemen, the truth is this: beauty fades, charm can be learned, but presence, true timeless presence that's cultivated, that's chosen. A mature woman who embodies these 6 habits doesn't just attract attention, she commands it. Not because she asks for it, because the universe has a way of making room for those who walk in their truth. So if you're watching this and wondering, can I become that woman? The answer is you already are. All that's left is to remember, thank you for watching. And never forget, your power is not in what you show, but in what you know quietly about who you are. Thank you.